Our story begins with the system showing that at last, the king who had united the 8 nations had finally ascended to the supreme throne of the souls. It congratulated our protagonist, Bai Qi, for being the first king to sit on the throne of souls and informed him that his rewards had been distributed and could only be used under specific circumstances. Excitedly, he shouted that he had finally done it. While his fans were congratulating him, someone stabbed him, prompting him to ask why. The mysterious man told him that he was an ant yet aspired to be a king. He added that Bai Qi's sin was unforgivable, and therefore he had to perish. Bai Qi then remembered being in a hospital, where doctors panicked upon seeing him suffer from massive internal bleeding. His heart rate had dropped to 0. As the doctor performed continuous CPR, all Bai Qi could see were bright lights, and then he woke up. He wondered what's going on because he vaguely recalled being stabbed by someone. Shockingly, he found himself lying on piles of corpses and wondered if he was in hell. Panicked, he questioned why he was in hell when he had never done anything bad in his previous life. He then asked himself who he was and felt an intense pain in his head, as if it were being ripped apart. Suddenly, he remembered that his name was Bai Qi, a 20-year-old gamer streamer. Initially, he was not popular, but his fanbase grew rapidly due to a recent live stream of the game, The Throne of Souls. This open-world RPG, set in a medieval Western fantasy world, features the storyline of an advanced alien ship crashing, integrating ancient civilization with future technologies. The game, highly praised for its unique world settings and top-notch storyline and visuals, also has a higher difficulty level, which has discouraged many players from experiencing it firsthand. Instead, a large number of them have flocked to live streams to watch the host's various acts of self-torture and suffering while playing. He remembers enjoying the massive traffic it brought due to his skillful runs, which provided the audience with a wonderful and shocking gaming experience. Yet, just as he was reaching the peak of his popularity, he was suddenly and mysteriously killed. He then heard someone telling him that he had died, but was still living. To be precise, he was reborn. The voice asked if he had finally recovered from the negative effects of his rebirth. Shocked, he looked around and asked who was speaking, noticing the voice was familiar to him. The voice explained that from a highly dimensional perspective, every game ever created is its own independent world. It addressed him as player Bai Qi, informing him that his death had automatically triggered the special reward he obtained from the Throne of Souls, the Key of Rebirth, resulting in his rebirth into the world of the Throne of Souls. Realizing that the special reward was rebirth, he was furious. Despite dying under mysterious circumstances and being given a chance to be reborn, he angrily questioned why he couldn't be reborn in a world full of beautiful ladies and welfare like in the love game Summer Heartbeat Memory. Instead, he was reborn into the hellish world of the Throne of Souls. He shouted that it was better to just die already, at least he wouldn't suffer. The voice explained that the Key of Rebirth was a special reward exclusive to the Throne of Souls. Other games didn't offer such an opportunity. Bai Qi contested, calling it more of a misfortune than an opportunity. He recalled from his gaming experiences that the nature of that game did not easily bestow benefits. He demanded the voice reveal its true purpose and what it wanted from him. The voice replied simply, by doing his best and once again sitting on the Throne of Souls, he would receive a more generous reward, the Key of Time Travel. This time, the game world platform would allow him to travel through time, and he could choose to return to his original world. Pleased yet skeptical, Bai Qi asked why they hadn't rewarded him with such an opportunity from the very beginning. He expressed interest in the reward but explained that he couldn't pursue it, citing the Rebirth protocol. There was definitely no infinite rebirth mechanism in that game. And in the world of the Throne of Souls, with its hellish difficulty, even a simple dog on the streets could kill him. The voice acknowledged the absence of an infinite rebirth mechanism, but reassured him that he was not completely defenseless. On the Game Plus World platform, under his account, there were 100 various types of runs, all of which completed achievements. He could complete different tasks and goals at different levels of those 100 runs, which would allow him to inherit their various abilities and equipment. Upon hearing this, he was surprised and asked if he could indeed inherit the abilities and equipment from the 100 different runs he had achieved, while cursing under his breath out of sheer interest. He noticed a sense of kinship, as he was a fan of all these games. He didn't just specialize in his live streams because the game type was popular. He knew those 100 games covered almost every genre, from popular to AAA masterpieces, from niche to independently produced, and even word games without visuals. Just thinking about using the abilities and equipment of those characters in the world of the Throne of Souls excited him. The voice then told him that he could also choose to be a civilian with no power. The final choice was his. He considered that being a civilian might be safer, allowing him to avoid the most dangerous bosses, but he would still face lethal dangers like disasters and famine. He realized that the system was manipulating him, presenting the civilian option just to make him more determined to pursue the path of a king. He told the voice there was no need for further tricks. He had spent 20 years as a normal civilian in his past life, and now that he was reborn, he couldn't endure the same monotony again. He then posed a final question to the voice, inquiring about any time limits or other penalties associated with the path of becoming a king. The voice replied that there were no time limits or penalties and asked if he was sure about his choice. Impatiently, he asked if the voice was still questioning him and affirmed that his answer was yes. The voice then told him that the contract was signed and expressed hope that he would ascend the throne of souls again soon. Suddenly, someone called out to him. A trembling figure shouted that it was him, the one hanging upside down who had been talking. He looked up in shock. Another person asked if he hadn't died a few days ago and wondered why he was alive again, joking that he was expected to start stinking soon. Before he could respond, the princess's guard, an elf mage named Gray, who was level 21, interrupted. He said it didn't matter and urged him to quickly find a way to let them down before the beasts returned to the cave. They needed to leave the wailing cave together immediately. The princess's guard, a human warrior named House, who is level 22, asked Gray incredulously if he expected a timid little boy to save them. The total guard of Princess Mina, and if he hadn't seen how scared the kid was, crying for his father and mother just a few days ago. House then shouted in anger that if it weren't for those traitors framing them, they wouldn't have ended up like this. The princess guard cat beast, Dagu, who is level 20, questioned House about what he meant by Princess Mina, and which royal guards he was referring to, arguing that those titles were completely pointless now and suggesting bitterly that they should just give up and die since he was exhausted. He then noticed the princess of the Kingdom of Stars and a human priest, Mina, who is level 12, collapsing while still hanging upside down. The Kingdom of Stars and Princess Mina seemed strangely familiar to him. He then realized that they were not NPCs he should have met as soon as he arrived. And the Wailing Cave wasn't the original starting place for beginners. The very thought of it was terrifying, and he wondered if he would have died immediately upon appearing if he had chosen the civilian path. The system then displayed that he was in the Wailing Cave, which is suited for levels 20 to 30, but he was only at level 1, human, and unchosen. This made him think that the difficulty was indeed hell level, as it was unreasonable and shocking, just as he had anticipated. He wondered what was happening, as the order of the main storyline seemed completely disordered. Originally, the game's first chapter should start with being born in Anka Village, levels 1 to 10, followed by the Burnt Jungle, levels 10 to 20, where he would undertake a quest and trigger a forced storyline. Then, he should get captured in the level 20 to 30 dungeon, the Wailing Cave, rescue the hanging Princess Mina and her party, and finally cooperate to strategize and break out from the dungeon. Deciding to not dwell on these discrepancies for now, he knew he first needed to choose an initial profession to plan out specific tactics for the future. He commanded the system to activate the initial professional selection, and it presented him with choices. The first was the Brave Warrior, a close combat profession equipped with a longsword and shield, emphasizing balance and defense. The second was the Wood Mage, a long-range profession using a staff and spells, capable of both attack and healing. The third was the Assassin, a profession blending close and ranged combat, utilizing daggers and throwing knives, and emphasizing attack speed and agility. The fourth was the Elemental, another mixed combat profession using a single-handed staff or bow to control the power of natural elements for attacks. Lastly, there was the Outcast, a despised and scorned role without any characteristics or extra armor, starting with only rags and a wooden stick. He asked the system why it bothered asking him when his choice remained the same as when he first cleared the game, to choose the Outcast profession. The voice inquired why he chose the weakest profession with the highest survival difficulty when many more advantageous professions were available. He explained that in the Throne of Souls, the profession choice affects early game survival rates and playstyles. Although it was possible to specialize in different professions in the mid-game, they couldn't exceed the broad framework of the major professions. He revealed to the system that only the Outcast profession had its survival difficulty maxed out. Enduring the hellish despair of the early game would allow him to find a crucial hidden NPC in the mid-game to reset his attributes, enabling him to switch professions without limitations. Despite its high difficulty, it offered the highest replayability. Plus it had one major hidden feature. He could achieve all the profession achievements through unlimited profession switching, without having to start multiple playthroughs for different professions. This strategy was why he became the first player to clear the game and simultaneously achieve all the achievements. The voice acknowledged his understanding and commended him for meticulously planning his adventures, deeming him worthy of being a top-tier player. Excitedly, it announced that the main quests had been updated. His primary objective now was to survive and reach the exit of the Wailing Cave, with the reward being one account unlock point. The voice further explained that an account unlock point, or point, could unlock 25% of the items in the current game account's warehouse randomly, without usage level restrictions, or alternatively, randomly unlock a brand new game account, along with corresponding 25% usage rights for items and skills. Jumping down to the pile of dead bodies, he realized that surviving and escaping the dungeon was paramount. Gray asked if he was finally coming to his senses and if he noticed the rope on the side. He instructed him to untie it so they could all descend together, facilitating their escape. He silently moved to where the rope was tied to the stone, contemplating the consequences of untying it. Upon doing so, Gray thanked him, saying that without him, they would still be hanging there, waiting to die. Dagu expressed a preference for hanging in the air rather than actively seeking death, while House, holding Mina, admonished everyone that it wasn't the time for such discussions and ordered Gray to find a way to wake Mina. As Gray, smiling, asked House if he could ever stop sulking, he failed to notice a blade flying their way and was slammed into the wall hard, catching everyone by surprise. Modik, the Blood Axe and leader of the Plague Beast clan, at level 30, told them that as food, they had better stay put in the storage room. House demanded to know how Modik had suddenly appeared. Remembering the game mechanics, he realized that choosing to be rescued there would trigger the boss battle of the dungeon, an extremely difficult fight requiring everyone's full effort. Engaging in combat in his current state, with no attributes, no level, and no equipment, meant certain death. He knew the key was to venture into the cave alone to obtain the account unlock reward. As for whether to return to rescue them later, that remained to be seen. Although they were important NPCs, his survival was currently the top priority. Despite Gray's urgent questioning about why he wasn't helping them, if he was planning to escape alone, and what was going through his mind, whether he really thought he could survive and escape the Wailing Cove alone, and if he lacked even basic judgment, he turned back to the rope and chose not to untie it. Howes reminded Gray that he had warned her not to waste time on the kid, dismissing him as just an outcast with neither intelligence nor courage, convinced that the kid wouldn't survive even a minute. Lifting his wooden stick, he responded to them, "No matter what I say, you won't believe it. You'll understand my intentions soon enough." Suddenly, a level 5 Plague Beast cub noticed him and laughingly charged toward him. Howes scoffed to his team that even though it was just a level 5 Plague Beast cub, a level 1 outcast stood no chance and was doomed. As the beast cub launched its spike mace at him, he considered that even if he chose not to rescue them, the battle was still inevitable. Defeating a level 5 monster might be challenging, but not impossible. He swiftly turned and dropped to the ground, dodging the beast cub's attack. The creature attacked again, but he dodged once more, unharmed. Howes was surprised and questioned if it was just luck that he had dodged twice. Gray noted, although those two dodges looked extremely clumsy, the timing was surprisingly precise. Dagu added that the kid was not simple at all, but remarked, "All regenerators are quite strange, but it's none of my business. Right now, I just want to die." Proud of himself, he felt no delay between his body and mind and was glad that despite the lack of bonuses from professional equipment, his countless battles had honed his reflexes and experience. In anger, the beast cub threw a bomb at him. It exploded, but to the cub's surprise, he managed to protect himself without any injuries. Seizing the moment, he struck the beast cub in the face with his wooden stick. A few moments later, with his health fully restored, he declared to the beast cub that it was the end, the final attack. The beast cub, with its health low, screamed at him in anger, but he struck it once more with his wooden stick, telling it to die. Gray couldn't believe it, knowing he was only level 1, yet he managed to kill a level 5 plague beast unharmed and with just a wooden stick. Meanwhile, Dagu was envious of the manner in which the beast died. Howes admitted he had underestimated Bai Qi but told Gray that even if Bai Qi could kill a level 5 beast, it didn't increase his survival rate. It was still a dead end. Exhausted, he sat down, aware that even though he could evade its attacks through experience and predictions, the gap in power couldn't be bridged quickly. The stats and weapons he had were still too weak, but he thought it didn't matter since he had already chosen the outcast path, and should adapt to the unconventional playing style. Also, except for forced battles, he should avoid any other fights as much as possible. The system then displayed that he had defeated the level 5 Plague Beast Cub and obtained 100 spirit points, 2 golden coins, a broken mace weapon, and 5 melee attack powers. He opened his status window and saw that his stats panel was as bad as he expected. He noticed that there were still 900 spirit points left until the next upgrade, which meant killing monsters to level up wasn't effective now. His ultimate goal was to escape from the cave in the fastest and safest way possible. He stood up and walked away, prompting Gray to shout after him, asking if he would really not reconsider his proposal. Gray argued that with more people, they would be stronger and have a greater chance of escaping alive. He also shouted for him to let them down and that they could negotiate whatever conditions he wanted. Mina, who had just walked up, told Gray that it was okay and there was no need for him to pester Bai Qi any further. She also told her guard that if they couldn't get out of trouble with their own power, even if they died, it was acceptable. If they couldn't overcome this difficulty, there was no way they could face greater challenges on the path to restoring their nations. Gray just asked her when she had woken up. She tells him that even if she finds his decision unwise for a level 1 abandoned child, she still respects it. Despite his overconfidence, she wants to offer him a piece of advice. There is a thin line between life and death, so he should be cautious. This makes him realize that even in such deep adversity, Mina can still maintain her rationality and elegance, truly worthy of the title of Princess of Restoration. He tells them that he does have his own plans, but he doesn't wish to share them, and even if he said he would definitely come back to save them, they wouldn't believe him. House furiously calls him a damn kid and asks if he was joking or just insulting their intelligence. But Mina tells House that it was enough and that if he has the energy to curse at him, he should think of a way out, to which House immediately replies, yes. He remembers that according to the original plot, even if he doesn't save them, they will find a way to escape on their own. However, if he doesn't intervene, he will miss several achievements related to Mina, and he knows that to save them or not all depends on whether he can reach the exit smoothly, and the kind of reward he will get. He also knows that allies are important, but his survival comes first. He then walks to the dungeon, knowing that the Wailing is the last dungeon of the game and that it has many good things hidden. So, he thinks in order to collect all of them, he should travel to every hidden corner of the cave. He is glad that he is already familiar with it, so if he wants to encounter the smallest number of enemies with the lowest level, he can only choose that path and save a key character. He waits for the monster to leave while hiding behind a stone and approaches the jar, asking, "Who is there?" He tells the jar that he can smell that it is not a plague beast. It then tells him to come closer and that he must be wondering how a jar is talking, but explains that it is not the jar but the person inside. Someone inside also tells him that they originally went into the cave to hunt for treasures, but hid in the jar to avoid the plague beasts, but accidentally got sealed inside by that crappy magic and can't escape, so all he needs to do is break the jar and he will come out. The person assured him that he sensed no plague beasts around and it won't attract any attention. He swung his broken mace to shatter the jar, and a man came out from it. The man, named Luchi, was level 27, human of unknown class, and tells him that he owed him a favor so he could satisfy any reasonable request of his. He then shouts to Luchi that his friend has been captured by the plague beasts in that cave and he wants to save them, but he is too weak. Luchi replies, understanding his plight, and comments that while he was brave, he was not wise, but he was lucky to have met him and that he will be safe with him. Luchi then tells him to lead the way. As they emerge, they encounter a monster, an adult plague beast, level 18, swinging its hammer in attack. Luchi, recognizing its scent, blocks the hammer with his arm while shouting that it was the beast who sealed him in the jar. He then stabs the beast in the stomach with his sword, shouting that it left him to die in that jar. Luchi slashes off the plague beast adult's head while commanding it to die for him. Amazed, he tells Luchi that he is awesome, but Luchi simply asks him how he dared to enter that cave to hunt for treasures without any abilities and proudly tells him that they should continue. A moment later, they arrive near the cliff, and he tells Luchi that he heard his friend's voice from down there. He also expresses concern that he doesn't know if his friend can hold on, so they should find a way to save him quickly. Luchi replies that it was easy and kicks him down the cliff, telling him that his method is the fastest. He screams while falling down the cliff, but Luchi teasingly tells him that it's his old habit. Whenever he sees someone standing on the edge of a cliff, he can't resist kicking them down, but he can resist that impulse because, after all, he saved him. Yet, he notes, being reborn is the iron law, and such people will be punished upon discovery. He asks Luchi from down the cliff how he discovered he was reborn, leaving Luchi shocked and asking him in surprise why he is still alive after falling from such a high place. He tells Luchi that if he had jumped down by himself, he would have died. But since he was kicked down by Luchi, he did not, although his health was low and he was next to a dead man. He knows that although he can't die, the pain from ruptured internal organs is real. Fortunately, he was aware of equipment below that could be picked up. He then collected a blood spirit jar and a glowing stone. Luchi walks away from the cliff, remarking that he has long heard that the reborn are very strange, and it seems he should not have kicked him down but rather stabbed him to death with a sword from behind. Now trapped in the abyss, Luchi was certain he would die sooner or later. He realizes that Luchi is an insidious NPC who always likes to kick players into the abyss in the original game and can read hidden areas and take advantage of the kicked but not killed mechanism. He drank from the blood spirit jar he picked up, knowing that the setting of Reborn had never appeared in the Throne of Souls game system. This made him wonder what the translation of Reborn was and thanked the blood spirit jar because his health was fully restored. The voice explains to him that most information about Reborn has been stolen, and the information that can be disclosed now is that it refers to people who came back from the dead due to unknown special circumstances. He notices that this setting is vital, that information won't be given for free, and that the Reborn identity is too tricky, so he has to be careful in dealing with it to avoid an unexpected end. He grabs the glowing stone, thinking there is no need to worry about it now because, although there are no plague beasts behind him, it is still an insidious terrain, and he shouldn't let his guard down because the real danger has just begun while he was walking in the hidden region of the Wailing Cave, the Lost Ruins with an unknown level. The Throne of the Souls is an open-world action-adventure game. The plot development and narrative techniques of the game tend to be fragmented, requiring players to gather clues from various NPCs, monsters, bosses, ruins, and other sources to uncover the truth of that world. As a player who has completed all levels and obtained every achievement, Bai Qi already knows everything about that world except for a few newly introduced elements. In the center of the imaginary world called Pascalo, a huge crystal known as the World of the Souls stands under the protection of its brilliance and energy. Here, all species coexist harmoniously, and the world is vibrant with life, until one day, a spacecraft named Deep Void, an unmanned advanced ship, crashes into it. Coincidentally, the crash site is exactly where the World of the Souls is located, causing the foundation of that world to collapse along with it. Although Pascalo was nearing its end, it hadn't completely destroyed the world. Instead, the world continued to divide and gave rise to more diverse species and civilizations. Bai Qi is currently in one of the abandoned ruins belonging to the underground civilization, deep under the Wailing Cave, near an unknown underground river outlet. He remembers that the mission only stated to reach the exit alive, without specifying which exit. This ambiguity provides him the opportunity to skip class. Although the path ahead isn't guarded by the Plague Beast clan, the death rate is much higher than on the main path, as one must accurately determine the locations of platforms protruding from the rock wall. One wrong step could be fatal, but for Bai Qi, who has gained extensive experience through countless deaths, successfully reaching the bottom of the abyss is not a problem. He knows he must pay close attention as the platforms narrow closer to the bottom, leaving less room for error. Even though he remembers all the platform locations, he still needs to proceed with caution. Unfortunately, when he jumped onto a platform, he slipped but, fortunately, managed to regain his balance. Looking down in relief, he realized it was a close call. Even though he was being more cautious, he almost fell. He reminded himself to be even more vigilant, knowing he should be nearing the bottom, when suddenly a man appeared behind him asking if the exit was close and suggesting he now understood that the exit was indeed downward. Bai Qi immediately looked back and swung his broken mace, but the man dodged in time. The man rolled across and landed on the other side of the platform. As he asked who the man was, Harvey, a level 30 human elemental ranger, teasingly told him that for a level 1 outcast, he had quite a temper and asked if he had scared him. Harvey then said that he shouldn't have appeared so suddenly behind him because it would have been better to stab him through the heart before he had time to react. He shouted, asking Harvey who he was and why he had suddenly appeared behind him. Then he remembered that Harvey was the dead man from the cliff and asked him if he was the corpse from the bottom of the cave where he had been picking up props and if it could be that he, too, was a reborn. Playfully raising one foot, Harvey told him that his reaction was too slow, but he didn't blame him because, compared to himself, who was directly reborn as a level 28 elemental ranger, being reborn into a level 1 outcast's body was incredibly unlucky. Harvey then teleported behind him and remarked that a side character like him shouldn't be there, and that he didn't even have the motivation to kill him. Harvey then slashed him from behind, reducing his health by half and paralyzing him. Coughing, he asked Harvey why he did it when he had never offended him, and why he wanted to hurt him when, as fellow regressors, they should be helping each other out of danger. Harvey asked if he was joking and if his system hadn't told him that regressors are the enemies of everyone, but especially of other regressors. Disappointedly, Harvey added that he thought he had some special ability since he was so familiar with the path, but it turns out he didn't even know the most basic things and had completely wasted his one opportunity to be reborn, swinging his broken mace at Harvey while shouting for him to go away. He asked if Harvey really thought he'd believe his nonsense, but his broken mace shattered completely upon hitting Harvey, who teasingly told him that it was normal for a level 1 outcast to not understand and that he didn't need to waste any more time with him. However, since he had shown him the way, he wouldn't kill him directly. Harvey then jumped down, telling him that whether he lives or dies was up to him, and if he was lucky enough to survive, he wouldn't mind if he came for revenge. He called on his system to ask why this was happening and what other important information it was hiding from him about regressors. The system explained that it hadn't deliberately concealed anything, but he must unlock the hidden information about that world himself. Due to the special event he encountered, he had unlocked 3 pieces of hidden information about regressors. The system then informed him that the first piece of information is that regressors are defined as evil heretics in that world and are hated by all species. The reason for this has not been unlocked, and there is more cruel killing and competition between regressors, but the purpose for it remains undisclosed. However, he can not only obtain massive soul points and experience but also blood soul points. The second piece of information revealed that regressors are the collective name for people who are reborn in that world. But they are not limited to a single species, and the reason for this has not been unlocked. Lastly, regressors are randomly reborn into creatures of different species, genders, jobs, identities, and levels. Low-level regressors can be easily detected by high-level regenerators with just one glance, but the reason for this has not been unlocked. The initial job of each regressor contains unique information about that world, except for outcasts. However, outcasts can obtain unique information about other jobs through job changes. As for the differences between each regressor's system, the relevant information has not been unlocked. Powerless, he asked the system what use it was to tell him this now when he was already almost dead, but it proved that the throne of the souls was indeed not that simple. Then, he grabbed one of the metal platforms to stop his falling speed and held tight to the platform, telling himself not to let go because he couldn't waste his chance to be reborn so easily. He then leaned back, thinking that no matter how painful it was, he must endure. He slammed himself from platform to platform until he managed to reach the ground, though his health decreased. Shaking in pain, he laughed and shouted that he had won the bet and that the exit was just 10 meters ahead, so he would just have to crawl out. But then, a slimy thing approached from his side. He immediately looked over when he heard it and remembered its scent. He then saw the hidden rarity, a level 50 Wiggly Tooth fusion beast, staring at him in shock as well. Panicking, he realized there shouldn't have been any monsters there. He shakily wondered why there was a Wiggly Tooth fission beast there. Suddenly, the beast split apart and small monsters spread out, completely surrounding him. He couldn't believe that it had transformed into its fast-moving second form so soon and wondered what was happening, knowing it shouldn't have been there in the first place. He then had an idea and wondered if Harvey was responsible, if he had deliberately lured the monsters out to trap him. He was infuriated that Harvey's appearance had completely disrupted the situation he had under control and knew that, given the current circumstances, it would likely end in death. As the small monsters lunged at him, he jumped into the acid next to him, and the monsters crushed to the ground and thinks, not underestimate him, who has survived hundreds of battles. He screamed in pain from the strong acid corrosion, but he knew that due to thousands of years of mutation and pollution, the underground river had become an acidic Styx that could devour almost all living things. Clenching his teeth, he thought that although the pain piercing through his bones was worse than death, they shouldn't underestimate his will to survive. He knew this was the only path left if he wanted to live. Although the water from the acidic river caused him extreme pain, at least his clothes provided some protection. However, the exposed skill of the Wiggly Tooth fusion beast was fatal. He then crawled toward the exit with all his might while the monsters hesitated to risk their lives. He told himself that he was finally able to start over and swore never to live as he had in his previous life, a life filled with frustration and despair. Bai Qi was born in a poor mountainous area and believed that if he was admitted to a prestigious high school in the city, he could change his future through education. Thus, he left his mother and home resolutely. Despite the hardships of his part-time job and the pressure of studying, he never backed down because he still harbored hope. Thankfully, he was admitted to his dream university. However, his world collapsed when his mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and despite his hard work and borrowed money, he could not save her. Working part-time and streaming games became his whole life. Although there was nothing particularly special about his streams, his popularity skyrocketed due to one specific game. However, just as he was about to reach the pinnacle of his life, he died unexpectedly. Though he had never cared much for the concept of life and death, he absolutely couldn't accept such a trivial end. So, when Bai Qi found himself reborn into a game he was very familiar with, he was framed at the beginning and had to endure that frustration anew. He stood up, positioned his feet, and jumped toward the exit while shouting that he would never allow it, as the monsters leaped at him, trying to bite him. But he didn't give in, thinking that before becoming the king of that world, he refused to die. When his health was nearly depleted and he was in extreme pain, he successfully escaped the Wailing Cave and earned unlock points. The system informed him that he had 1 point and asked him to choose. The first option was to unlock 25% of the item usage rights from his previous game account's inventory, which was random and had no usage level restrictions. The second option was to randomly unlock a new game account with the corresponding 25% of usage rights for items and skills. He chose the first option as the monsters gathered around him, intending to consume him, but then a powerful light emanated from him. He then used a Holy Blood Essence, a god-level consumable that immediately restored 100% of his health and permanently increased his peak level by 30. He equipped his set of Bloodthirsty Shadow, a hidden assassin set that greatly improved agility and intelligence, also featuring the special effect Shadow Sting. He then equipped his dagger, the Scarlet Killing Blade, the best weapon for a hidden assassin, known for its rapid speed and strong lethality, and its weapon combat skill, the Scarlet Flame. He freed himself from the monsters biting his entire body, emerging from the fog while joyfully proclaiming that he had endured to the end. He revealed his strengthened form, boosted by 30 levels, and shouted, "This is what a reborn king should look like." As the monsters lunged to bite him again, he swiftly slashed them into pieces, moving at full speed. The monsters struck by his daggers were sliced apart. He pondered that choosing to inherit the props from his original account, rather than taking the risk of unlocking a new one, was the correct decision. Although it was only 25%, it was sufficient for the mid-early stage since his inventory contained only top-quality props and equipment. He challenged the monsters, declaring that his story had only just begun. But they shook in fear behind him, staring in awe. They then fused together to form a massive monster, screaming in anger behind him. But he simply asked why it was howling so loudly and told it that although it was in a hurry, it should hold on. The system then updated him that his hidden mission had changed. He should kill the Wiggly Tooth Fusion Beast, and if he succeeded, he would receive 3 times the soul points as a reward. Facing the Wiggly Tooth Fusion Beast, he caught his dagger, which rolled in mid-air, shouting, "This is the mission reward I've been waiting for." He then activated his combat skill, Scarlet Flame, and asked the monster if it was mentally prepared to be turned to mush. Sprinting towards it, he yelled, "The real battle has just begun." He then gets closer to the monster while shouting for it to die. It tries to attack him, but he easily dodges and tells it that he already knows how it attacks. As long as he is fast enough, he will be able to neutralize it. He then stabs his daggers into its body and jumps up, slashing it, which causes it excruciating bone pain while shouting that he'll pay it back double for the suffering it caused him. The scarlet burn left by the attack makes the monster scream in pain. This scarlet burn is a debuff caused by scarlet flames, which will explode in the cut wound, and the damage will last for 15 seconds. The system also explains that the excruciating bone pain is a debuff caused by the hidden assassin's combat skills, and the incision that goes deep into the bones will bring excruciating pain. The scarlet flame then explodes inside the monster's body, making it cry out in pain, but he just asks it if it is in pain and tells it that he will now put it out of its misery. He then uses his Shadow Assassination Formation, the ultimate combat skill of the hidden assassin. The player can transform into several shadow clones that will focus on the target. Also, the shadow clones are immune to all physical and magical attacks for 5 seconds. He and his clones get closer to the shouting monster and all of them slash at the monster with their daggers. After that, the system tells him that he has successfully killed the rare elite Wiggly Tooth Fusion Beast, and his side mission has been completed, so he will receive double the soul points reward, which totals 18,000 soul points. He also earns an achievement that says sometimes a faint light is stronger than a raging fire. His level increases by 8, and he is surprised that he actually advanced 8 levels in one go, making him wonder if it's the result of level skipping battles and system rewards. He knows that leveling up in the Throne of the Souls is very difficult and remembers that he once summarized the rules and values for obtaining soul points and leveling up during a game livestream, and although it had no substantial meaning, it was well received by his audience. The system then tells him that he has obtained 108 gold coins, 2 filthy crystal bottles, and a piercing of suffering. The filthy crystal bottle restores 30% of blood volume after use. The piercing of suffering is an attack-type prayer that summons sharp blades which will pierce the 3-dimensional space around his body with a diameter of 3 meters and is activated by a kneeling posture of devotion, but it can only be used 3 times. He knows that the prayer attack type is very useful and remembers that he tried to obtain that skill 30 times without success, but this time, it appeared after just 1 attempt. He thinks that, since he is currently on the job path of a hidden assassin, even with the bonuses from equipment and peak levels, the most important attribute is still agility, so he increases his agility without hesitation. He then opens his inventory to take a closer look at what else is unlocked in the 25% of his inventory. He notices that most of them are consumables and ingredients. He was embarrassed because he obviously had many top quality weapons and professional sets, but he hadn't unlocked enough of his inventory. Yet, in addition to the hidden assassin set he was using, he also unlocked 2 top quality sets. The first is the Blood Armored Dragon set, which has strength above 80, the highest grade of heavy armor with both strength and endurance that ordinary people cannot control, and a Dragon Spine Sword, a 2-handed sword made from a dragon's spine that can cut through a dragon's indestructible skin. The second one is the Starry Sky Prophet, a magic mage set that belongs to the branch of star magic and can be equipped by those with an intelligence of 100 or above. Also, a Deep Space Beacon is a top-notch staff made of golden meteorites from the universe, which works extremely well when paired with star magic. However, even these 2 top quality sets cannot be used now, and the other items unlocked alone can ensure his survival in the early stage. He then asks himself whether he should go back to rescue Mina and her party or just leave on his own. He knows that becoming a lone wolf wouldn't cause any problem. but now there are uncertain elements of regressors. He wonders how much the original game changes due to the emergence of regressors and if there are any other unknown elements that could change the original settings. He thinks that before that information is obtained, instead of taking high risks alone, it would be better to join Mina's party and take on risks together while gathering information. He then remembers that according to the original plot, as long as he chooses to save Mina, they will also become important backups and assistants in the later stages. He thinks that even if they don't act out their roles according to the plot and instead betray him and try to kill him, he still has the ability to protect himself now, so he decides to start moving and rescue them. On his way, he kills a swarm of beasts and monsters. The beasts tried to kill him, but he simply used his piercing of suffering skill on the ground, which released a sharp sword underground and pierced the beasts. The monsters on the main route outside the cave have almost been wiped out, and the only battle left for him is the final boss. The system congratulates him for successfully reaching level 10 and tells him that the reputation system has been turned on, so he should check and manage his reputation at any time and choose whom to unite with or make enemies. He was surprised upon hearing this because it was another new setting that didn't exist in the original game, making him think that the lone wolf type of gameplay is no longer encouraged. While he was busy looking at the system, it informed him that Princess Mina's faction reputation is now enemy, and his desperate behavior has made Mina's camp hostile toward him, making him wonder how badly they curse him behind his back. Meanwhile, in a part of the Wailing Cave where Mina and her guards are hanging, Gray shouts that the more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets, and really can't understand how stupid that level 1 outcast can be, choosing not to save us and die alone. That kid must have gone completely cold by now. House tells them that he has long heard that all regressors focus on their own self-interest and have evil intentions, and Dagu is simply envious that Bai Qi was targeted to death by everyone. Mina tells her guards not to talk about those useless things and that the original reason they are framed is because their skills are inferior to others. She also tells them that as the leader of the team and also the lowest ranking one, she had to take full responsibility, and it was her who caused them all to follow her and die in vain. Gray asks her what she is talking about and tells her that they have sworn allegiance to her long ago, so she didn't need to apologize at all. House then tells her that their previous complaints are not because they are afraid of death, but because they are unwilling to see her great wish of restoring the country being deprived by an idiotic outcast before she had even begun trying. Suddenly, a sharp blade was thrown into the ropes and they were all shocked when they all fell from the hanging. Gray shouts to House to protect Mina and House manages to catch Mina in time. Dagu was upset that it was another failed attempt at dying and House asks Mina if she was okay, to which she replies yes. Gray looks up and shouts, asking if they are planning on saving them or killing them. He tells them not to be nervous and that it was just a little payback for how they cursed him out. They are all shocked when they recognize his voice, but he takes off his hood while reminding them that he said he would come back to save them, and tells them that the real surprise is coming soon because the boss will be there in 1 minute, so they should get ready for battle quickly because there is no time to waste. He cuts the rope to free them, and Gray, confused by his statement, shouts that they were just saved by him when the boss of the Plague Beast clan is about to appear, making him doubt his true intentions for coming back. Mina then tells him that, regardless of his motives, she must express her gratitude because otherwise, they would have been hanging there until they turned into bones. However, he tells her that it's not time for thanks yet because the crisis will arrive in 40 seconds, and they should pick up their weapons and escape together. He adds that this is the greatest gratitude they can show him. House shouts at him to watch his tone and declares that just for his disrespectful attitude toward the princess, he could decapitate him right now. Gray also shouts that in less than half a day, he has gone from level 1 to level 10 and rumors suggest that every regressor harbors secrets, proving that he is no exception. Dagu simply tells him that they should fight because he must kill him, otherwise he'll be killed. Realizing that his deliberate provocative language had an effect, he decides to keep going and tells them they are free to kill or mutilate him because he doesn't care, but reminds them that without him, their combat strength will be lacking and asks how they will handle the upcoming boss battle when just a few of them won't stand a chance of winning. House furiously shouts, asking him how dare he boast at level 10 and tells him that he'll send him on his way now. But Mina shouts at House that it was enough and it is not the time for an emotional outburst. She then takes out her staff and orders everyone to immediately enter battle mode. They all follow her orders, and she shouts that although there were still many questions, she would never allow any mistakes to occur with the glimmer of hope finally obtained. He smiled, knowing that his assessment had passed, and noticed that Mina's personality had not changed. She was still as fair as ever, and her guard's hostility toward him was only because of his previous actions of watching people die without helping, not because of his identity as a regressor. He was glad that at least they could cooperate in the upcoming boss battle. He then threw his thunderstorm trap that carved the runes of thunderstorm magic into the fragile detonation, and once stepped on, lightning and paralysis erupted in the front while shouting to them that only 10 seconds were left. He then slowly dissolved like ash while telling them to give him 3 minutes and they must hold on, making everyone shocked and asking if he was invisible, what was with the 3 minutes, and what he wanted. Suddenly, a huge thing appeared in front of them and landed on the ground, causing the ground to shatter while someone told them that as they were food, they should stay quietly in the pantry. The Plague Beast clan leader, Blood X Modic, then asks them why they always want to escape and tells them that he will personally cook them. However, Modic steps on the thunderstorm trap he threw, electrocuting and paralyzing him for a moment. House shouts that the boss stepped on the thunderstorm trap left by the kid and questions how Bai Qi knew the time and location of the boss's appearance. Mina shouts to her guards that they shouldn't worry about that now and that they have gained the upper hand, so they should focus fire on the boss because they must take him down, which they all agreed to. Modic swung his axe down, which House blocked, while Modic called them a bunch of ingredients trying to rebel, and laughingly asked them how they planned to take him down. House's health decreased significantly by just blocking it and was shocked that even a full block still resulted in damage. Modic was surprised when arrows headed his way and Modic easily blocked them, but then vines pierced Modic's arm and held him down. Still, Modic just shouted to them that if they wanted to fight, they should show their true skills and asked them if they are mocking him. Modic then swung his axe at the vines, shattering them into pieces, while teasingly asking them if they think they can restrict his movements with those methods. Modic then swung his axe down, which caused the ground to break. But fortunately, House jumped away in time to dodge it. Modic teasingly told them that running around like frightened rats was their best choice. Modic then used his 4-directed splatter to attack them while shouting that he would play with them until death, then used their pain and screams as the most delicious seasoning, relishing the taste of their broken bodies. Mina shielded them with her shield while House shouted that there was no avoiding that all-encompassing attack and asked what Bai Qi meant by boasting, and then fleeing. However, Gray shouted to them to forget about Bai Qi for now and focus on what was in front of them because, at that rate, Mina's magic will be depleted soon. Mina shouted to them not to mind her because she could still hold on and they can't just take hits like that, they should find a way to fight back. Modic appeared in front of Mina and asked her if he was right to say that she was the most exquisite and delicious part among the ingredients, and told her that he would start with her. Fortunately, House blocked Modic's attack in time to protect Mina. Disappointed, Modic called House pathetic and, laughingly raising his axe once again to attack, shouted to them that they should see if they could withstand it. But then, Modic stopped and shouted that it hurt. His health then decreased to half, and he looked back to see Bai Qi stabbing him in the back. Modic asked him who the hell he was and what he had done to him, but Bai Qi replied that he just added a little seasoning to his head and asked Modic if he wasn't fond of it, while continuing to stab Modic with his dagger that had acid from the Styx River, which increased the duration of the toxin the longer it was applied. Modic swung his axe at him while angrily asking how dare he mock his preferences and shouting that he didn't even qualify to be an ingredient, but he would chop him down. Bai Qi managed to jump away quickly to avoid the attack, making House question his speed and whether that was what agility level 10 should look like. Modic touched his aching back while shouting that it hurt so much and asked if it was a toxin from the acid Styx River and how Bai Qi knew that it was fatal to their Plague Beast clan. Modic then continuously swung his axe in anger, breaking the ground in the process, and told him to die, asking how dare a human make him look so pathetic. Gray shouted, asking if the boss was starting to go berserk due to the poison and if it was losing its sanity. The power of the boss reached the pile of the dead while Gray shouted to them that it was their chance and, while Modic was weakened, they should take him down. But Bai Qi shouted to them not to get closer because the boss hadn't lost his sanity. The battle had entered the second phase. The dead then came alive again and transformed into corpses. He shouted to them that they should block the corpse transformations, and he'd deal with the boss. Gray asked him if he was trying to get killed, but Mina ordered her guard to form up as Bai Qi said and not let any of the corpse transformations pass, which they all agreed to. Bai Qi then faced Modic, who told him that he had a low level but a big heart for facing him alone, and he was used to the pain now, so he should show him what else he had got. Bai Qi noticed that Modic's adaptation speed was within his expectations, but he knew that the toxin's duration was about 1 minute left. He then remembered that according to the original plan, as long as he doesn't die, Mina should be fine, so he should resolve the battle within 1 minute. Modic teasingly asked him if he was pondering and told him that instead of spending time thinking about how to defeat him, he should think more about how to avoid being turned into minced meat by him. Bai Qi activated his Scarlet Shoe and Fire skill and told Madik that being turned into minced meat was a pretty good way to die for him. Then he sprinted toward Madik to attack. He remembered that in the past, Madik had killed him while taunting that he was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered on his cutting board, and that all that awaited him was skinning and boning him alive. Madik held his dead body, declaring that his weakness was like minced meat in the hands of a cook, shapeable according to his whims. This made it known that Wailing Cave boss Blood X Madik, famous for his tough skin and rough flesh, had killed him at least 30 times before he could finally defeat him. Madik then rushed at him, angrily asking if even the ingredients dared to rebel and attack him with an axe, but he quickly jumped away to avoid it. He knows that it attack fast and its power is high, and its weapon come with life-stealing properties, but he knows that his agility is enough. As long as he doesn't get hit, he will be fine. Madik then threw sharp stones at him, and he easily dodges the attacks. Mina couldn't believe how he flawlessly dodged the boss's attacks repeatedly, relying solely on his speed and his understanding of timing and attack range. He was more like a seasoned veteran than a rookie who had just leveled up from 1 to 10. Madik confronted him, saying he could see through his tricks, and questioned whether he thought constantly dodging his attacks and using poison on his body would weaken him. Madik then raised his axe and activated some of his skills, shouting that they would see whether the poison killed him first or if he managed to chop him down. But he knew this marked the third phase of Madik. Madik then launched his Blood Dance State attack at him, shouting that he'd have nowhere to hide. The attack hit his leg, causing it to burn, which led Madik to teasingly ask him what he should do now. He taunted that no matter how slick he was, he couldn't escape from his Blood Dance's range, which he acknowledged, knowing that in the third phase, its attack range greatly increases, making it very difficult to dodge, and even the splatter from the blood could cause damage. However, he had been waiting for this phase. Hal shouted that the strong smell of blood was overwhelming, and even if Bai Qi could dodge this time, he was doomed. He then told Gray he'd leave the corpses to him because he needed to prepare to face the boss. However, Gray asked House if he was joking, telling him he couldn't handle all those corpses alone. Madik raised his axe to gather force, shouting that he would take his life, but when Madik swung it at him, he was surprised to find that he had disappeared. He then appeared above Madik with his shadow sting, making Madik shockingly question how it was possible and how someone of his level could have that ability. He remembered that in the past, when playing games, witnessing such fierce and powerful moves from a boss would instinctively lead players to distance themselves to avoid attacks, often resulting in a miserable death. However, he knew that the key to winning at this stage was close combat. He attacked once again at the wound he had made on Madik's back. He was aware that in the third phase, the boss's attack speed slowed and his defense decreased. Utilizing his shadow sting, he entered a specific radius around Madik. Madik's health decreased significantly, and he shouted in pain, asking why he was always stabbed in the back. Gray shockingly questioned why the boss was screaming in pain and if Bai Qi was turning the tables. House also questioned if Bai Qi wanted to die, noting that taking heavy blood from that distance would definitely be fatal, but Dogu just excitedly shouted that he hoped Bai Qi could see through his weaknesses too. Madik swung his axe continuously at him while shouting at him to die, but he simply rolled on the ground to avoid it. Standing up, he rushed towards Madik with speed, then used his shadow assassination formation to pierce his daggers into Madik. Madik swung his axe around, making him jump away while shouting that it was enough and he never expected that someone who should have been nothing but minced meat could push him to such an extent. Madik then used the blood-sucking rune skill, which absorbs blood from a controlled target's body to replenish his own health, and told him that he had barely managed to acquire that life-saving item and now he had to use it on such insignificant trash like him. But he couldn't afford to be picky now. Madik then sucked the blood from his puppet corpses while shouting to him to wait until his health was restored because he would definitely tear him apart into pieces. Bai Qi was surprised to see this, knowing that Madik shouldn't have had that skill. Suddenly, a forbidden barrier that encases the target with a magical barrier, cutting off its connection with the outside world and preventing it from being healed or blessed, appeared under Madik, making him shocked that his skill item was interrupted. Mina shouted to them that there was no need to panic and explained that it was just an imitation of deep space equipment, and even her spells could easily cut through it. She urged them to forget about the corpse swarm and focus all their attacks on the boss to take it down in one fell swoop. As Madik jumped towards Mina to attack her, blaming her for everything and declaring he should have killed her from the beginning, Mina's guards, overwhelmed with corpses, panicked, fearing they were too late to save her. Fortunately, Bai Qi blocked Madik's attack with his daggers, which greatly decreased his health. She apologized to him, but he merely used an item to regain half of his health and told her not to say anything because it was his fault for losing focus. He insisted that she didn't need to apologize for being in danger because he had failed to take down the boss in one fell swoop. Madik furiously called him a persistent bastard and asked him how long he intended to bother him. Bai Qi simply challenged Madik to bring it on, declaring that their final move would decide their life and death. Madik was shocked to see his determination and sensed that something was not right, as the aura emanating from Bai Qi was dangerously intense, and the smell of blood coming from Bai Qi was even stronger than his own. Madik then fled, shouting that he would spare them for today but they should remember this encounter. Then, the corpses fell to the ground, lifeless once more. The guards rushed to Mina, apologizing for arriving too late to rescue her and acknowledging that they had almost put her in danger, but she reassured them that it was okay since they all survived the encounter with the boss. Bai Qi ran after Madik, shouting to them that the crisis was not completely over yet, and they couldn't let their guard down. Mina tried to stop him, telling him that now was not the time to pursue this further and that it was best to leave while they could. However, he leapt away, shouting back to her that he had his own reasons. He then used his shadow assassination formation to surround Madik and all of his clones, slashing at Madik while shouting that the boss must die, which he successfully accomplished. Mina and her guards' levels increased by 1 while he explained to them that they couldn't let the boss escape, or it might lead to other uncontrollable situations. The system then informed him that he had successfully defeated Blood X Madik and earned 320 gold coins, 15,000 soul points, and his level also increased by 2. He was relieved that finally, the toughest challenge in the Wailing Cave was gone and they could catch their breath for a moment. The system then told him that he had obtained the Blood Dance Fury Axe, a battle axe that could be dual-wielded. It was a sharp battle axe, soaked in large amounts of blood and flesh. Wielding it would make him easily angered and maddened, with its unique skill Blood Dance. He also obtained Necromancy, an upgradable skill book that allowed control over corpses below level 30 to act according to his commands until they died again, and a blood-sucking mechanism, an imitated version of a deep space device. Using this mechanism forcibly absorbs the vitality of beings below level 10, slowly restoring one's own health. She apologized to him and admitted that she shouldn't have influenced his judgment because so far, all his judgments had been accurate. She then thanked him for blocking the attack earlier and told him that she owed him a favor, but he reminded her that, if he remembered correctly, it should be 2 favors. He suggested that those are stories for another time and they should discuss them after they truly escape from there. He knew that only part of his judgment was correct, but he wondered why there were exceptions that contradicted the original settings and if it could all be related to the Reincarnator, making him realize that he must quickly figure it all out, or else he could face unknown dangers at any moment. Gray then praised him for being impressively strong and noted how he had transformed completely in such a short time. Duga told him that it is the uniqueness of a regressor and expressed his gratitude for being saved, but admitted he just wanted to duel with him right now. House then sincerely bowed to him, admitting he had been hostile toward him from the start and had said many hurtful things, making him feel ashamed. He sincerely apologized and hoped for forgiveness. The system showed him that his camp reputation had changed to that of a life-saving hero, and his heroic rescue had greatly increased Mina's camp's favorability toward him, with an overall rating of friendly. He wondered if his reputation really increased, but noted that they didn't mention what rewards come with that reputation system. Knowing that while his reputation had increased, gathering more information was the best approach. He told them that he was not a hero, but just a regressor condemned by all. He questioned why they seemed not too concerned about his identity as a regressor. Mina replied that his identity as a regressor is indeed special, but their situation is similar to his because they are all targets of public scrutiny and seem to have a strong affinity with regressors. Besides him, they have also been helped by another very powerful regressor. Surprised by this, he asked if there was another powerful regressor. He then asked her to tell him more because, as she knew, he is a newly awakened regressor, and he wants to learn more about their kind. She replied that it wasn't the place to chat, so they should talk as they go. They then proceeded to walk towards the exit. While walking, Mina explained that to introduce that person to him, they have to start with a large, special group of regressors. She explained that a regressor refers to people who, for some unknown reason, return to life after death. The common trait among them is that they all possess some kind of special ability, with the first one discovered after the first Falling Star War. They often have different ways of thinking and behavior from ordinary people, but most are inherently cruel and debauched, disregarding rules and acting as outsiders in their world. Initially, various countries did not place much importance on regressors until an ancient prophecy from hundreds of years ago surfaced. The prophecy stated that the world would collapse and disintegrate, and only regressors could repair and unify it as kings. Consequently, various countries regarded them as heretics and threats, offering high rewards for their capture because they refused to accept the fragmented kingship returned by an outsider. Mina told him that the regressor who once helped them was completely different because he was powerful yet refined. lacking that savage and debauched aura, which was quite similar to his. She also told him that meeting them all was her fortune, and though her fate was tumultuous, his was destined to be even more so because the world's hatred toward regressors would exceed his imagination. Suddenly, she threw a dagger at him, telling him that it was from him. He caught the dagger and examined it as Mina explained that it had been given to her by that regressor. The system then showed him that it was the veil of the patron. Though it was a dagger, its damage rivaled that of a scalpel, and its ability to conceal the wearer's true identity made it impossible to discern their true self without using high-level tools. He was astonished that the dagger had such properties, as he had never encountered it before. Mina explained that the dagger could conceal his identity as a regressor, reducing unnecessary threats, and it could also guide him to find the regressor who helped them, which made it more beneficial to him. House questioned Mina on how she could give away such an important tool, reminding her that without it, her identity would be completely exposed, which was very dangerous. Gray agreed with House and told her that even though Bai Qi had done them a favor, there were plenty of other ways to thank him. However, she replied that it was her well-considered decision and there should be no objections. He looked at the dagger, wondering if it really brought benefits to him, and thought that it was very useful, as it could prevent higher-level regressors from seeing through his identity at a glance. This made him realize that Mina was as honest and kind as ever, but precisely because she was such a good person, he thought that Mina was destined not to become a king. He remembered that as the last bloodline of the Starshine Kingdom, which once ruled the worlds, Mina should have lived a life revered by all. However, unexpectedly, disaster struck, and the guardian of the world, the soul of the world, was shattered into 8 pieces by extraterrestrial visitors, causing the world to undergo violent upheaval. Although there are no living organisms on the Deep Space Vanguard, the various unknown genes carried on the ship led to species mutations, resulting in a world filled with apocalyptic crises. To protect the realm, the Starshine Kingdom dispatched troops and united under 8 lords to combat the mutant army in what became known as the First Falling Star War. Although most of the mutant army was wiped out, the Starshine Kingdom exhausted its nation's strength, and with the 8 lords deliberately pulling away during the conflict, the authority of the Starshine Kingdom collapsed. Each of the 8 lords declared independence, taking a fragment of the 8 world stones. Though these events occurred 100 years ago, Mina, as the last of her bloodline, is still seen as a thorn in the eyes of the rebellious 8 countries. Yet, her personality only strengthened her resolve. The more she was suppressed, the more resolutely she pursued the difficult path of restoration. Her flashback was interrupted when Gray asked him what he was staring at and if he had killed all the corpses on the road before he came to their rescue. Gray then acknowledged that he indeed had skills and expressed relief that he hadn't chosen to be their enemy. Dagu pointed to the exit and told them that it was just ahead. Mina then ran towards the exit, urging them to hurry because they were about to successfully escape. As the bright light hit her, causing her to cover her face, they were all stunned by the brightness outside. Mina extended her arms in the air, joyfully asking, "How long has it been since we bathed in such warm sunlight?" and remarked that the feeling of regaining freedom was truly amazing. Gray happily agreed, shouting that they no longer had to endure the dark, damp air and the disgusting stench of corpses in the howling cave. Dagu smiled and told them that at that moment, it felt pretty good to be alive. Mina then told him that only when experiencing freedom can one truly understand its preciousness. She expressed her gratitude to him once again, saying that no amount of thanks was enough for the life-saving grace he had shown them. He modestly replied that it was nothing and the dagger she had given him was enough to repay the favor. He then asked her what their plans were next. Although Bai Qi knows their next steps, he thinks it's better to ask in case there have been any changes. When he inquires, Mina replies that there is something they must do. Gray awkwardly adds that it is something very important. But House tells Gray there is no need to hide it because Bai Qi is their savior and a true hero. They don't need to hide anything from him. Mina agrees with House, admitting there is really nothing to hide. But she hesitates because it is a bit embarrassing. Nevertheless, she reveals that they originally hired a capable mercenary group with a lot of money, but halfway through, the mercenaries betrayed them, leaving them in danger and penniless. They also took something very important to her, which she must get back. Bai Qi understands that Mina is referring to the Star Core, a necklace made from the core of the Broken World Stone, a symbol of the royal bloodline of the Starshine Kingdom and one of the most important items in the original game. Mina sadly admits that the betrayal occurred because she was not only weak but also naive, having blindly believed the lies of those mercenaries. House, punching the cave wall in frustration, shouts that their failure was not due to Mina but because they were too weak to protect her and the relic. Gray interjects, saying their weakness was only part of the reason. The bigger issue was that the mercenaries disguised themselves too well, and they didn't detect the deception. Dagu agrees, noting that even he didn't detect any abnormal scent from them and fears it might be very difficult to find them again. Mina asserts that she must find them, even if it means chasing them to the edge of the world, no matter how long it takes. Bai Qi reassures her, saying there is no need for such drastic measures because it won't take too much time, and he asks if they would believe him if he said he knows where those people are, leaving them shocked. House asks him if he knows where those scumbags are and how he found out. Gray shouts at him not to joke around and asks if he realizes how important this is to them, but Mina remains silent. He then tells them that he is not joking and asks if he has ever lied to them from the beginning until now. House replies that it is indeed true and acknowledges that although their journey was full of twists and turns, he has never deceived them. Gray then asks if what he is saying means that the task they plan to spend a lot of effort on can be accomplished easily, and Dagu asks if it was resolved just like that. Mina apologizes for doubting him at that moment but explains that having a heavy stone pressing on their hearts and suddenly moving so easily feels somewhat unreal, and that she had prepared for the worst. He tells her not to worry about it, and although he can't explain the reason, he is sure of the location of the mercenary group that harmed them, so they should follow him. She shyly replies that she believes him. House tells him to watch his words and reminds him that it was rude to be so casual with the princess, but Gray calms House down and points out that Mina hasn't said anything, so he should stop meddling. Meanwhile, in the Burnt Jungle, which is a level 10 to 20 dungeon, the perennial geothermal heat burns through the jungle. Yet, it hasn't incinerated life there entirely but instead maintains a relatively balanced ecosystem. A lizard monster chases after a little monster and consumes it, but is surprised when it sees something. A moment later, the lizard monster is being barbecued while someone complains that the burnt jungle is no place for humans because it is sweltering hot. The mercenary group, League of Justice, which consists of around 30 people ranging from level 20 to 30, has settled in the burnt jungle. Someone asks what little hardship compares to the profits they have made, and credits their success to that fool being so easily deceived. Maxwell, a human warrior who is level 28, tells his comrade that he can't figure out why they have to stay in that burnt jungle, and that he can't wait to enter the city and spend money like water. Kira, a human swordsman who is level 27, replies that their boss said there is his own reason, but didn't specify why, so they can only wait, and the money they have received won't fly away on its own. Yuri, a deputy commander of the mercenaries and a human mage who is level 29, asks their boss how long they have to stay in that damn place and tells him that although he specializes in fire magic, he hates the heat. Hades, the leader of the League of Justice mercenary group who is level 30, just keeps quiet while looking at the necklace in his hand. Yuri tells Hades that he was daydreaming again, and ever since he got that necklace, he has been staring at it blankly. Yuri then asks Hades about the origin of the necklace, but Hades deflects, asking them what they are arguing about. He tells them he is not dead and that he has been guarding it for so many days just in case of a mishap. He then questions what would happen if that woman escapes from the Wailing Cave and admits he is starting to regret not killing them directly at the time. Maxwell tells Hades that he is too cautious, and that with the abilities of those few people, there is absolutely no way they could have survived in the Wailing Cave. Kira agrees and bets that those people have already become excrement of the Plague Beast tribe. Yuri, annoyed, adds that Mira refused Hades' kindness when her road to recovery would have been smooth sailing with them, criticizing Mina's short-sightedness in trying to recover a country. Earlier, Mina, tied up, confronts the members of the League of Justice, telling them how evil they are and expressing her deep trust in them before asking why they betrayed her. Hades replies that justice and evil are not contradictory to them, it depends on the degree of rewards they receive, which means their judgment criteria are very flexible. As for betrayal, he insists it was not betrayal but rather them helping her instead. Hades then mocks her desire to restore the country, suggesting she should just give him the legendary necklace and become his woman. Mina shouts back that she knows if she falls into his hands, he can do whatever he wants, and adamantly states she won't give him the necklace even if she dies. Hades snaps his fingers, calling her a stubborn woman and accusing her of not cherishing her own life. He then manipulates her by asking what about the lives of her subordinates, pointing out that, although they are a bunch of useless trash, their loyalty to her is commendable. He presses her further, asking if she can bear to watch them being slaughtered right in front of her. Mina clenches her teeth in anger, visibly shaken. Back to the present, Hades shouts that foolish people don't deserve to live in that world, especially an incompetent princess whose abilities don't match her ambition. He then orders his men to guard one more night, and the next morning, they'll visit the nearest Anka village. All agree. Maxwell grabs a lady on his side, asking if they are finally leaving that damned place, and excitedly shouts that it is definitely time to get some fresh blood because he is tired of the women in their group. Maxwell left with the woman, who was crying and begging, while commenting that he felt full, so it was time to stretch his muscles. Yuri, observing Maxwell's actions, remarked that Maxwell really can't stop and rest for a moment. He is always either eating, sleeping, fighting, or flirting with women, a man of endless energy. Yuri then turns to Hades and asks how he plans to handle the necklace, pointing out that it is definitely invaluable, and he shouldn't just keep carrying it around casually. Yuri suggests that the best solution might be to sell it to the nearest country. He also warns Hades that all 8 countries are searching for Mina, most likely for the necklace, and if handled properly, the necklace could ensure they rest easy for the rest of their lives. If not, it could bring disaster upon them. While stabbing a little monster, Hades agrees with Yuri and muses on how a random escort mission turned into such a profitable venture. He mentions that they must maximize its benefits and has considered trading with a country, but the nearest, the Islena Duchy, from the queen to the nobles, reeks of poverty and is filled with artists. He argues that rather than selling it to them, it would be better to sell it directly to the Hades earldom because they have much more money. Yuri, however, brings up that he heard the Hades and Wembok earldoms are about to engage in a small-scale war over the border and questions if they would have time to make a deal with them right now. The Hades earldom is characterized by a lion's head emblem, with ranks including Earl, Knight, and Commoner, rich in mountains and mines, excellent blacksmiths, and a powerful army. The Islena Duchy is symbolized by a rose emblem, with ranks of Queen, Nobles, and Commoners, known for fertile farmland, flower gardens, excellent painters, and literature. The Wembok earldom, featuring a bear claw and axe emblem, consists of ranks such as Earl, Knight, and Commoner, known for dense forests and hunting grounds, excellent hunters, and carpenters. Hades tells Yuri that he underestimated the influence of the necklace, which is the essence of war profit. Even in such chaotic times, its nature has not changed, and the legendary gem inherited by the royal bloodline has the power to change the world, arguing that the value of the gem is worth 10 times all the benefits of all the wars put together. Yuri, shocked, asks if it is really that powerful and why they don't keep it and use its power to establish a country for fun. Hades replies that he thought about it too, but after examining it closely today, it feels like an ordinary gem in his hands, and he doesn't feel any power from it. He then stands up, advising Yuri to forget it and that if he wants to live long, it's best not to covet power that he can't control. Hades walks away, telling Yuri that they are not like those lunatics from the martyr sect who use their flesh and blood to exchange for power. In their limited lives, he asserts, making more money and living a happier life is more important than anything else. Yuri agrees and curiously asks him how he knows so many secrets, but Hades dismissively tells him that it's none of his business. He then orders Yuri to inform their brothers to rest up because tomorrow they'll move toward the Anka village. Yuri replies that he understands. Meanwhile, as they arrive in the burnt jungle, Gray tells the group that they are quite cautious, but if it wasn't for Bai Qi's preemptive assassinations, and had they encountered the enemy head-on, he fears the entire camp would have been alerted. Mina points out that they have the advantage in levels and numbers, questioning how they can retrieve the necklace in such a disadvantageous situation. House admits that although he wants to charge into the enemy camp and snatch it back, in an absolutely disadvantageous situation, being bold and fearless is just asking for death. Dagger then suggests that he could go and distract most of the enemy while they take the opportunity to attack the group leader. However, Gray skeptically asks Dagger how he plans to distract them and if he intends to bat his eyes and act cute. Gray then proposes that it would be more reliable for them to sneak in quietly at midnight. He explains that they can't wait until night because they only have a maximum of 3 hours left before the enemy discovers the dead bodies during their patrol rotation, which would alert the entire camp, noting that the mercenary group's leader is very cautious. Mina acknowledges that Hades is indeed quite difficult to deal with, not only because he is highly skilled in acting but also because his mind is extremely cunning. It seems they can only temporarily give up and look for another opportunity. However, Bai Qi tells her that there is still a chance, surprising everyone. They urge him to quickly share his idea. He explains that their biggest disadvantage is numbers, but he has a way to make up for that numerical gap. He reveals that deep in the burnt jungle, there is a nest of fire spiders. Although their levels are only around 10 to 20, their numbers are huge. His plan involves first ensuring their own safety as they approach the monster's nest, then trying to lure out as many monsters as possible and leading them to the mercenaries' camp to transfer the aggro of the monsters onto the mercenaries. Mina points out that even with a large number of ordinary monsters, it might be difficult to inflict heavy casualties, as the mercenaries' levels are not low. Bai Qi clarifies that the role of the ordinary monsters is just to create chaos unexpectedly, and the key to whether the plan succeeds depends on whether he can lure the fire spider boss to the mercenaries' camp. The group is shocked and asks him in a panic if he plans to lure the boss alone. As they begin walking, Gray tells him that his plan is very interesting but not simple to execute because, first of all, it's impossible for everyone to both go into stealth and leave combat. House then tells him that among them, only Mina and the cat can use an invisibility spell. Dagu, frustrated, asks them how many times he must tell them that he is not a cat, but a tiger. Mina explains that her invisibility spell can only be used individually, and cannot be cast on a group, so once she and he become invisible, the monster's hatred will fall on House and Gray, which is very dangerous. House assures her not to worry about him and that as long as they can retrieve the necklace, that level of danger isn't a big deal, and if he dies, Bai Qi must take care of her. Dagu tells them that invisibility is impossible for him, so he will go in head first because if he can be covered in spiders and die horribly, he can at least enjoy it. He reassures them that as long as they strictly follow his plan, no one will die. He then gives them items, a Shadow of Solitude, which grants temporary invisibility, but has unknown side effects, Whisper of the Divine, a device from the Deep Space Pioneer ship that allows free communication within a range of 1,000 meters, and a Frost Grenade, which releases a freezing attack that slows down enemies within a certain range, but its magic mechanism might cause indiscriminate attacks, so they should use it with caution. House asks him if he is sure he is giving them to all of them. Gray asks in disbelief if he is seeing it right because there is even a Deep Space original artifact and asks him if he knows how much they are worth. Dagu asks him how he got those and if he was a king's illegitimate child in his past life. He explains that he acquired those rare items by constantly grinding and that the Deep Space items unlocked this time are just barely enough, so they still need to accumulate more account unlocking points. He then replies to them that how he got them isn't important because what is important is that with those rare items, his plan can proceed smoothly. Mina tells him that she respects their secrets, but giving away so many Deep Space items, which even the current kings of the 8 countries probably couldn't do, is extraordinary. She knows that Deep Space original artifacts are extremely rare and exclusively used by royalty, who consider them the highest reward granted to nobles and knights for significant contributions. She also explains that although the emergence of the Deep Space Observer Academy has popularized replicated deep space items, their inferior functions have actually highlighted the value of the original ones. Even within the 8 countries, there is a religious cult that worships the original deep space artifacts, with no shortage of nobles among them. However, he tells her that the Deep Space Observer Academy is an independent research institute, separate from the 8 countries. They convert the results of reverse engineering into military power, and sell it to the highest bidding countries, which has promoted technological progress in the human world while also making humans more violent. Meanwhile, original deep space artifacts are highly coveted on the black market and can fetch absurd prices. He asks her if it was true that she used her ancestral items to buy mercenaries on the black market, only to lose all her money and the ancestral necklace. Shocked, she asks him how he knows about it, but he simply replies that he guessed, though the truth is he knows everything about Mina. He then comforts her by telling her not to worry because everything would be restored and promises her this, making her shyly thank him. She wonders why Bai Qi's words always gave her a sense of reassurance, even a fluttering feeling, but she stops herself, knowing that now is not the time to think about those things. The system then shows him that his main quest has been updated to help Princess Mina retrieve the Star Core, which has a reward of new account unlocking points. He asks the system what the ways are to earn more new account unlocking rewards, and the system replies that currently, there are 3 ways: 1 complete the designated task, 2 defeat regressors, and 3 accumulate soul points for redemption. He then puts his hood back, thinking that the ways to obtain new accounts aren't too difficult, and plans that after helping Mina retrieve the Star Core, he'll focus on collecting more points. He knows that there is only one uncertain factor in the current plan and it needs to be verified through actual combat, making him sure that there is no turning back for him now. He then yells to them to get ready and informs them that up ahead is the spider monster's nest, so they should put in their communicators to stay in touch at all times and follow the plan, to which they all agree. Meanwhile, in the red fire spider nest, 2 level 5 red spider hatchlings are fighting each other, but then someone steps on and crushes them to death. Mina's guards, stepping on the spiders playfully like children, revel in the moment until she shouts at them to stop playing around. She reminds them that they are running out of time, so they must destroy enough spider eggs to enrage the boss, according to Bai Qi's plan. They immediately comply, causing true damage to the spider nest. House, however, questions whether destroying spider eggs really enraged the boss and if Bai Qi can indeed predict everything. Gray sternly tells House not to make meaningless guesses, emphasizing that unless they have a better plan, they must unconditionally trust Bai Qi, a sentiment Dagu agrees with. Suddenly, adult red fire spiders, level 18, appear, hissing in anger. House shouts stutteringly that they did it and Bai Qi was right again. Mina then orders her guards to retreat and reminds them not to use the items Bai Qi gave them until they are close to the mercenary camp, as per the plan. The guards acknowledge and begin their retreat, chased by the adult red fire spiders. Meanwhile, the boss, a red fire widow level 30, opens her eyes upon sensing disturbance. She howls for her children. He calmly asks her if she felt her eggs being destroyed and explains that it means Mina and her team successfully executed the first step of their plan. He then positions himself and tells the red fire widow that it's her turn now. In fury, she stabs her claw into the ground, causing it to shatter. She confronts him, asking if he is seeking death by daring to challenge her. Unperturbed, he offers her a deal. If she can best him, he will reveal his purpose. He slashes at her leg with speed while stating that with his speed and courage, he is a formidable opponent. Suddenly, the red fire widow transforms into a human form and tells him that he is not an ordinary human. She approaches him suggestively, saying she likes strong males and proposes that since her eggs have been destroyed, he should stay and join her in procreating to produce even more children. He asks her if she's referring to the process where she injects him with her neurotoxins and then consumes him in a state of extreme excitement. Without waiting for her response, he decapitates her while declaring that he has no interest in becoming her breeding farm. The lady's body then exploded into spider webs, and the red fire widow reverted to her original form, attacking him with her toxin while calling him utterly foolish. She taunted him, saying that since death was inevitable, he had chosen a more painful way to die rather than a comfortable one. However, he easily dodged the toxin, thanks to his speed. He knew that the boss's hatred had reached its peak, but the battle was not the goal, so he ran away. Glancing back, he considered whether drawing the boss out of its territory was the key to victory. Just then, he stopped running when he felt the red fire widow looming above him, and a huge spider web fell towards him. He managed to jump away in time to avoid it. He remembered that in the original game, the boss's territorial consciousness was strong. No matter how much they provoked it, it would never leave its territory. The red fire widow mocked him, questioning where his previous momentum went and why he was only thinking about escaping, and if it could be that he felt intimidated by her dominance. But he knew he had already lured her to the edge of her territory, making him wonder if she would behave differently now. Suddenly, she turned around, feeling bored, and shouted that she had no interest in weak males. Realizing that mere hatred wouldn't lure her, he decided to try something more tempting. He shouted for her to wait and told her that he was there under the orders of their captain to harvest her silk because it made excellent equipment material. Moreover, he added that there were 30 men even more robust than him at their camp nearby, and asked if she thought he was afraid of her. Shocked to hear about 30 robust males, she chased after him, excited by the prospect of draining them to have many children again. She ordered him to take her there now, or she would kill him on the spot. As he ran, he was relieved that his judgment was correct. He realized that while the world followed the original game setting on the surface, it was not entirely true. He figured out that by relying on his understanding of the game and creative thinking, he could do things that were impossible in the game before. This realization made him wonder if this was the true way to play the game, and he felt it was getting more and more interesting. What will gonna happen next to find out? Just do like, share, and comment if you want the next part as soon as possible. And also help us by giving supers, because your one support motivates us a lot to make such type of content. Thanks for watching. Sayonara.